Welcome to Chris Sandor's ePortfolio, which is the capstone graduating project of the MET program. This project has allowed me to reflect on my MET journey thus far and is an important piece of learning. I hope all future and current MET students are able to take something from this ePortfolio, as well as really anyone who is interested in education. I've divided this portfolio around what I would call the parts of a mountain bike ride. That's my metaphor. Parts of a mountain bike ride are the climb, mechanicals, the descent, and the finish. I put courses in these different sections as they happen to me. So not necessarily the beginning and the end, but the courses I had difficulties with, I found them harder, were part of the climb. Things that really slowed me down were mechanicals. Courses that seemed to flow a little bit more were part of the descent, and the finish is obviously eTech 590. I chose to use Weebly to build this ePortfolio as I'm most comfortable using Weebly, and I wanted to spend more time on the content of the ePortfolio rather than getting bogged down in the technical details of something I was unfamiliar with. I not necessarily want to make it fancy, but I want to make it clear, but I wanted to spend more time on the content. All the pictures and videos you'll see on the site are my own. I'm not sure if this was the best idea, as I'm not the best photographer, but I enjoyed trying and working with different things, and I also enjoyed learning how to use a GoPro, which I've never done before. Where applicable, you'll find a next button at the bottom of each page, right here, to move you along to the next course or the next portion of the ride. You'll also see these parts of the ride as the top tabs as well, which is something I've shown you already. All artifacts that I've included in an ePortfolio, they come up in a new pop-up window. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, but it's a personal preference of mine, and I've remained consistent with that throughout the ePortfolio. I think you'll find the look and feel of the ePortfolio reasonably consistent and pretty easy to navigate. Every time I review or tweak the portfolio, I think the navigation is almost a little bit boring, but I've chosen to be consistent in the makeup of each page, as you'll see as we go through it, just to try and be consistent and make navigation easier. So, I'm kind of torn between the boring part and the ease of navigation, but I've chosen to make it easy to navigate. So this is the home page, obviously. The About page has a rationale on why I chose to pursue the MET program, as well as some guiding questions that I try and use when I actually use technology, but it's also given me some focus when looking at learning with technology, but it's also focused me within the MET program, and I actually think it helps focus the ePortfolio. Part of the reason I've included that is that focus, but that was some of the feedback I got as we went through the process, and so that was valuable, so thank you to those people who gave me that feedback. I've also included some information about myself. I am pretty private, and so I don't include a lot of information about myself when I do things like this. But once again, the feedback was more information about myself, and so that was fair enough, so I've chosen to include that as well. I haven't chosen to include things like degrees and jobs and things like that and conferences I've been to, as I find that that almost looks like a resume, and I know some people have moved in that direction, and that's totally fine, and that's up to them. But for me, the whole purpose of this portfolio is as a reflective piece of work, and once I start including things like degrees and conferences and things like that, I find it's almost too resume-ish for me. But as I said, that's a decision I made. You'll also see my Twitter feed down here, and that's part of a point I'm trying to make here. It scrolls a long way down. I've tried to change that a few times, but haven't been able to. But that's where it is. So you see, once again, there's a next page here. So the next three sections are the climb, the mechanicals, and the descent. So this is kind of the meat of the ePortfolio. Each of these pages have a brief introduction, which you can see here. A brief video, which is me with a GoPro trying to either go up or down and talk at the same time, which was interesting. And the course is included in that section with links to them here. I don't have a next here, and there's a specific purpose for that, because I want you to access the courses, the 3 courses, through here, down in these links here. I also used to have the courses listed in drop downs under the climb mechanicals and the descent, but I've chosen to remove those because some of the feedback I got was some people went directly to the climb and then went to the course instead of seeing this intro page, and the feedback was it didn't quite jive, and they weren't sure of why a course was part of the climb, and so by removing the drop down, I'm forcing people to come to each intro of each page. So you can see there's the climb here, and you can access these 3 courses through here. So here's eTech 500, and at the bottom of the page there's the next button as well. And here is an example of the one of the artifacts. And so as you see, as I click on it, there it is. It pops up in a different window. As I said, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's my preference. And so I've chosen to be consistent in that. So we have the climb. Here's mechanicals. Only has 1 course within it, eTech 510, but there's some personal stuff in here as well, which once again, I'm not great at sharing, but I have. Here's another video, and this one was actually shot just with my iPhone, and I think I shot this one right after I did some climbing, so you can hear some heavy breathing in there while I try and talk. So that's that one there, and here's the descent here. And so you can see the 4 courses I've included in the descent, and now here's the finish. I'm not sure if I'm actually completely done. I still think every time I go through it, I find a little spelling error, or I can tweak it here. Right away, I see something I can change here. I don't need this title here now. So I think, I will post this, and I hopefully this tour has provided you with some insight into my site and why I've created it the way I have and why the look and feel is the way it is. But probably over the next few days, I will continue to tweak it and change some of the language and incorporate some of the feedback I've gotten as well.